Hey everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. And as you can probably tell by the thumbnail and the title, we're gonna get a little bit ranty, okay? So a couple things if you're just coming to my channel because you want to know about this show. This is gonna be a bit of a dressing down of the show. It's also going to be comparing it to the memoir that it was written about, because I did read the memoir after watching the show. And also, I'm a book channel. I care quite a bit about how books are adapted. It's one of the reasons I don't watch a lot of adaptations. And I also like to keep things very positive on my channel. You might not know that if this is the first video you're about to watch from me, but I generally don't go into a ranting zone because it's not worth my energy. Like, I don't like to expend energy on negative things when I could build authors up, build up stories that I love. So this is going to be kind of interesting. However, a couple caveats I want to put into place. I am not tearing down the author of this book. In fact, when we talk about the book this is based on, 44 Chapters About 4 Men, I have great things to say about that memoir written by BB Easton. So I'm excited to talk about that. What this is going to be addressing down of is the way that Hollywood looks at stories and the way that they adapt stories and the way that they look at marriage and sex. Like, I have a lot of things to say about that. This is just one girl's opinion. I am a romance lover first and entertainment second. And so I had so many feelings while I was watching this show and then reading the book after. So this isn't going to be an episode by episode breakdown. That is what I thought I was going to do. Okay, so let's just dive into this, okay? I have iced tea in here because this is tea time with Jen. I don't do those very often, but this show deserved tea time with Jen. So, first things first, I saw that this was coming out. I was actually approached via email and asked if I would like to be on a panel for release day for this book, because it's with like a it's with a PR group that I do PR for books for sometimes. Now, I hadn't heard of this memoir before. I didn't know that Sex Life, what was coming to Netflix, was based on this memoir. So I didn't know that. And so I just didn't respond because I was like, well, I don't plan to read this memoir, so I don't feel like I should be on this panel and put my nose into it if I don't have anything to do with it, right? I was like, I'm just going to stay out of that. Then, fast forward, I also don't watch much TV these days. Like, honestly, the only TV that I really watch is Outlander, which hasn't been on in like over a year. I watch Bridgerton and I watch Yellowstone when Yellowstone is out. Those are really the only TV shows I watch. I used to watch a ton, but during COVID, books kind of usurped completely TV for me. So I don't watch a lot of it. But I was feeling like I wanted to binge a show, and I saw that Sex Life was on, and I was like, hey, I heard this was based on a memoir. How about I watch the show and review it and then read the book and compare the two? That was my plan. So I had my little notebook. I always take notes, and I was breaking it down by episode. And as I went through, my notes devolve, and I get angrier and angrier until I was like, I don't want to review this where I have to find the positive things to say about it. When I finished the show, I watched it last Sunday. I was so angry. I messaged so many of my book friends, literally crying with rage. And I was like, this cannot be what this is, because here's the thing. I knew that the book, 44 Chapters About 4 Men, is a memoir based on BB Easton's real marriage. And I was like, there's no way in fuck that this is a true representation of this memoir. I was like, there's no way that BB Easton would have been writing a memoir and that the conclusion was what we came to with the show, which I will get to in case you're just wanting to hear me rant and you didn't read the book. So immediately after finishing the show, like, I started watching the show at 9 a.m., finished it at 2 p.m., and then I grabbed the book and I read that in about 2.5 hours. And I felt better, number one, because that book was great. Like, it was hilarious. I don't read memoirs. The way that it was told was hilarious. I had such a great time, and I felt so much better. But then when I looked at the difference between this memoir written from a real life experiences in her marriage with her husband and this, God, made for the type of culture we have now of unhappiness and men don't care about their wives and like all this shit that is not what I see reflected in the marriages of the people that I love and the kind of marriage that I'm looking for me, and the miscommunication and the aborted conversations and just all of these things where I was just like, this is what Hollywood thinks of marriage. My God, no wonder we're in so much trouble. Okay. Yeah, I really want to keep this video to, like, I'm not picking apart how it was made. Like, it was beautifully made. I think there was too much voiceover. I think there was, just the way it was chosen to be shot was very interesting. But I don't have problems with the actors in it or the way that it looked or any of those things. Like, it's not about me thinking that how the show looks is trash. It's the message that it was choosing to tell. And I know that there is a creative license to things. Like, believe me, I made my channel on reviewing Outlander, which takes some big creative licenses with characters that I love. But for the most part, I feel like those characters still resemble in some way the characters I read in the book. They may do things different or whatever. Sex life, I don't know what the fuck it was going for. And I don't know how this author feels about how her life was interpreted. But honestly, I hated Billy in the show. Again, in the show, anything reference to hating, it's the show. And the way that she didn't communicate with her husband, the way that she was longing after this person who had just like destroyed her, all because the sex was good. Well, here's the fucking thing. You didn't try to make the sex good with your husband. I'll just be honest with that. We won't go into that, which is exactly the whole point of the book. Like, that's the part that I have an issue with. It's not that this show isn't representing maybe someone's marriages like that. It's the fact that this memoir is about a real woman who wrote about her experiences, and like, she was writing down things in her diary, and her husband finds it and realizes that his wife is bored and unsatisfied. And so he starts to implement these fantasies that she has into their sex life. And she's like, whoa, he's reading my diary and it's amazing. And so she starts to make up experiences with different boyfriends. She's not even telling the complete truth, right? She has a diary that she knows her husband is reading, and then she has a secret diary that is even more secret and is only for her, where she is writing about the experiences. And so she starts to plant these fantasies into this book because she knows her husband is reading it and that she can kind of train him that way. That's still not perfect because she could just talk to him and tell him, but she decides that it's a way of like saving his pride, where he can feel like he is not being diminished by that, but he's getting better. And it brings them this new intimacy where he's able to see what she likes and he's able to make changes to please his wife and to keep his wife. In that book, in that memoir, there is never a time where BB is thinking about an ex so much that she wants to leave her husband or wants to cheat on her husband for him, okay? Not once. She's only ever reminiscing about some boyfriends, and sometimes those boyfriends, it wasn't even good sex. But she'll write about an experience and write it the way that she wished it had happened so that her husband can do those things for her, which was so charming and funny. And the way that it's written is hilarious. It was a romantic comedy, but it was even better because you know that she was doing this with her husband and that their marriage was kind of being saved, at least from mediocrity, by this book, by this diary she was writing. And I thought that was so beautiful. And just, I was smiling the whole time I was reading it. In contrast with this show, which shows a woman who I had a lot of empathy, sympathy for Billy at the beginning of it, okay? Her husband hasn't touched her in a while. He seems more into the sports than he's into her. She is staying at home with the kids and doesn't get to feel fulfilled in work. And like, those are all true things that women have experienced. And then when an ex that she used to have fantastic sex with comes back into the picture and says that he wants her and misses her, she literally wobbles back and forth for 8 episodes. That's the thing. I was hoping that episode 6 was the last one, and then there was 2 more of this, of these false stops and starts. And even once her husband knows that she's being tempted by this ex, it's not about, like, the diary part of it goes away pretty quickly in the story. Like, that's the first couple episodes. And when her husband reads them, he's so hurt and upset about it, and they have angry sex once and it's great. There's never any more discussion about that or use of that diary that she's writing in, which was the whole point of the book. Like, that's literally what the book was, is that she was writing different things she wants to try, and then her husband would do them. And it was amazing, and it just was a great way to spice up their marriage and to get them back on track. And in the show, Cooper is just being tortured by this knowledge that at any moment his wife could leave him. And she keeps promising him, like, I'm never not. And then she keeps putting herself in positions where she's around Brad. She keeps letting Brad contact her. And even once we see the past of, like, how great their sex was, who fucking cares? That man wasn't emotionally giving you what you needed. That man wasn't supporting you and loving you and caring about you. There is a trigger warning for miscarriage in this show. And Brad literally leaves her when that happens, And sure, it's because he's, like, blaming himself or whatever. You guys, if you're a fan of my channel, I have issues with that anyway. I don't like when miscarriage is used as plot for someone to leave someone or something to happen. It really bugs me. That doesn't mean it's not real life. I understand that. But now, having read the book and know that there wasn't a miscarriage at all, that pisses me off that one was put in there as a reason why Brad would fuck up. Like, I despise that. And then, so the biggest sin of this for me, and I'm going to try to land this because I'm not going to rant for hours about this. I could, and I have. This is me having calmed down. If I had filmed this last week when I immediately saw it, my head would have exploded. Like, I had to take a week and think about this. The thing that disturbed me the most, and is why I immediately picked up the book, because I was like, there's no fucking way this really happened. In very near the end of this show, Cooper, the husband, goes to visit Brad, the ex, who has just been relentlessly going after her. And Cooper says to him, if I step down, if I step back, if I let a divorce happen, will you love her? And not just her. Will you love our children? I'm going to cry, guys. I was trying to hold it together. Cooper goes to this fuck up and says, if you have such a passionate love for her, will you also love my kids? Because she's a package deal. And thankfully he's like, yes, I will. But I already asked her to choose me and she picked you. And so Cooper's like, okay. You can just tell he's getting tired of this by now. And I was like, okay. And this is before we got all the way in. I was like, okay. I haven't liked all this wishy-washy, and every time Cooper and Billy try to have sex, something interrupts them. We only see her having good sex with Brad. That's the only time it's ever good for her. Well, guess what? You weren't communicating with your husband, so of course your sex isn't going to be great. Communication is the key to the best sex. Just telling y'all. Doesn't matter how animalistic the guy is. If he doesn't listen to you, it's not a great time. She is deciding to stay with Cooper. And I was like, if this whole series is about her realizing that she has a good man and she has a good thing, and if they communicate and work on their sex life, this could be perfection. She lets some fucking snooty housewife make her feel like mediocrity isn't enough. Even after she's decided to stay with Cooper, she lets that fucking woman get in her head. And so the last scene of the show is Billy going to Brad's house, and Cooper can tell because he's tracking her phone, which at this point, I don't blame him. I would be too. And she goes to Brad's house, and Brad opens the door, and she's like, I'm not leaving my husband, Brad, but you can fuck me if you want to. So this whole show wasn't about her deciding that she had a good thing with her husband and if they could communicate better, and realizing that she had hot sex with Brad, but he wasn't there for her when she needed him. It was about her deciding that she could have her cake and eat it too. And that's not romance. And the thing that is bugging me so much, and why I felt like I needed to make this, is that I'm seeing people say that, oh yeah, that's so sexy, there's a full frontal scene, this is hot, whatever. And I was like, I don't care, you can go watch porn if you want full frontal scenes, okay? You can. But to say that this is a good representation of a romance novel, to say that this is a romance novel, which, number one, it's not even a romance novel, this is a memoir, but the memoir still has a happily ever after as well, because BB is still with her husband. But to say that this is a good representation of a romance novel made into a show is a fucking lie. It is a lie. It is not a happily ever after for a woman to decide that she can cheat on her husband but still keep him. And I have never in my life ever watched a show where I wanted a husband to cheat on his wife. You know what? Cooper, he has someone at his office who he has turned down and pushed away all this time. She's been a supportive friend. She's made it known that she wants him if he ever gets a divorce, but she's not going to pressure him. I have never wanted a man to cheat before the way that I do in this show. And that is not how a romance should make you feel. So this can be a great show. And now I'm going to land the plane. It can be a great show. But I just can't stand it when I hear people say it's a good romance, because it's not a romance. It's not an HEA for our heroine to have decided to cheat. And that is, I mean, that's my opinion, but it's also fact, because an HEA is guaranteed with a romance. And I can't see a land where you tell me that an HEA is a woman deciding to cheat and not tell him and force a husband to deal with that. So, goddamn, I hope that Cooper fucking leaves her ass and takes the kids too, because she was so irresponsible, always leaving her kids to go flirt with Brad and stuff. I was like, take the kids and leave. And that's not how I want a show to make me feel. I don't want to feel vindictive and angry like this. It does nothing for me. Oh my gosh, I spent 8 hours of torture watching that show because I kept hoping that it would be the payoff of her realizing that Cooper is a great guy. All the places that Cooper fucked up in this show were because Billy pushed him into it, okay? Because Billy pushed him into it. I'm not even talking about the sex party. Like, that was just a mistake all around. A mistake they both walked into and didn't communicate. Because if they communicated beforehand, hey, we don't want anyone else to touch us, or we don't want this to happen, that wouldn't have happened. So, like, I don't blame Cooper about the dick sucking. Even though it wasn't cool, it's still, like, everything that happened in that, Billy pushed him into by not just sitting down and talking. And even when it was uncomfortable and you wanted to fight, you stay there until you talk through what's really going on. And after all of that, if you watch the show and you're unsatisfied, or you watch the show now after hearing me listen to it, I highly recommend that you read 44 chapters about 4 men. Because it was fun, okay? It was fun. Like, everything that Billy in the show is, BB Easton is not. She is wonderful and quirky, and the way that her and her husband can work through this, and it's fantastic. It's great. And there is never any cheating in the book, okay? There is no cheating in the book. There is only fantasy, and a lot of times the fantasy really is a fantasy because it isn't crazy sex that she was having with someone. She's making stuff up to get her husband to try it with her, which is kind of adorable. She says, this is irresponsible psychology, but it worked for me. So, okay. I had to purge this from my system. Some people have probably already written angry comments. I don't want that. I want us to have a discussion about what romance is and the way that Hollywood looks at romance and the kind of stories that they're writing for us, okay? That's what I want this to be, because there are a lot of great romance novels we love that are going to be made into shows soon. We're going to get The Hating Game. We're going to get Kennedy Ryan's books. There was just some more that were announced recently. We're going to get those. And I want to make sure that those shows are sticking close to their books as well, because otherwise I don't want to see them. And I'm not going to talk about them when that happens. Because if what was written in the book, if that had been made into a show, it would have been hilarious. We would have loved it. Like, each episode could have been a different fantasy that she had. And like, oh my gosh, it could have been amazing. Instead of this frustrating, heartbreaking, devastating look at a marriage that I just can't handle it. So, okay, I'm going to sign off now. Thank you for sticking around with me for this. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to me. If you spit any vitriol, I'm not even going to read it. It's going goodbye. But I would love to have an intelligent conversation. If you watch the show or if you've read the book, I would love to talk about it. So subscribe for this if you were new to my channel, because you just watched this to hear me rant about something. I make romance-related content multiple times a week, so make sure you like and subscribe. And if you want to watch more, you can do that right now. Bye.